Welcome to another drive-in double feature. I'm Ryan,
I'm Nathan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before I get anything at all, we have a Patreon over at patreon.com/drive-in double feature podcast. Nathan, I was at my local cemetery recently, and
hmm
I was just, hanging out there, just, seeing what was up,
Yeah, sounds
catching the
about
vibe
right.
of the place. Vibes were good there that day. People were
Really?
like in a super upbeat mood, and
Yeah,
just
at the cemetery, huh?
yeah, they're just,
Oh.
having a good time there, just celebrating life at the
hmm
cemetery. And I was meeting one of my fellow mourners there, and they were just, they're just happily smiling at the grave of one of their loved ones, and they're like, you know what? Let me go talk to them. And so I went and talked to him, and he said, you know what? They said this cemetery is so nice, but it's not as nice as the Patreon for the podcast Drive and
Mm.
Double Feature. It has a lot of fun games, fun conversations over there, just enough to make me feel all good inside that makes me just forget all about the death of my loved ones. And I tell you, they just have the biggest smile on their face when they say that. And then they say, I hope Nathan and realize how much we care about them. And I said, I think they know.
You know what? Let's give that guy permission to be buried with our podcast.
How do we buried with the
Yeah, well, no, with like an MP3 with our whole catalog on it, so we can listen to it from the coffin.
like on a thumb drive, or like he's got like an iPod
An
with
iPod,
all
come on, people still rock iPods, okay? An MP3 player, and well, we'll
my,
give them AirPods too.
my zone or what.
A
The
Zune? Yeah, the
Zune, yeah.
Microsoft Zune L. I love my Zune.
But anyway, it's only $5 a month. It doesn't affect any regular content. But today we are talking about 1990s Nightbreed, which is directed by Clive Barker. Oh my God.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Yes, he has directed a movie. This is one of the few of them. And this one is based off of a story of a guy that has all these different visions, and he starts becoming like this really demonic type of appearance to himself. And it's just him kind of slowly descending into madness while dealing with all these different creatures.
hmm Yep, yep, you hit it just right.
Yeah. Um, I've been actually wanting to see this movie for a long time. I usually have seen it like on different streaming services and everything, and how I've always kind of been interested in seeing it. And I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to watch it. And have you ever seen this one before? Have you ever heard of it?
I've heard of it. I've never seen it. I've also always wanted to see it.
Have you
Not
seen?
I've never read of any of Clive Barker's stuff, but I like know of his stuff like Hellraiser and there's a video game called Jericho which he did. And I think he's a very interesting guy. So when I heard that he had directed a movie, I was like, "Oh, I should definitely see that at some point." So I was really happy when you picked this one.
Yeah, and this movie, it, I guess it was kind of a success. It basically broke even altogether. So,
Not bad for a
um,
movie like this.
it originally Clive Barker was not really satisfied with the cut of this movie, but Shout Factory came back and gave him his own director's cut of the movie, and that's what we watched today, for this
Yeah,
movie.
I thought so because the
This,
running time says an hour 40, but the what we watched was about 2 hours long.
yeah,
Uh,
and oh man, that's 20 minutes makes a total difference.
yeah. What, did you watch both cuts?
Uh, no, I didn't. I should have, but I did
That
not.
would have been interesting. Well, I didn't know it had a director's cut till today. Otherwise, maybe I would have checked it out. I did think it was odd watching it, and I remember thinking 2 hours. That is, I thought that was surprising for this movie.
I kind of thought the same thing in my head because when you think of horror movies, very few of them, I think, are cracking the 2 hour mark.
hmm
I think for a horror movie, it's usually like hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes. It's kind of like that sweet spot for a horror movie because usually like I don't know. Do you think like sometimes like if you do like a 2 hour horror movie that's like a little bit overstaying the welcome, like you kind of start losing that vibe of the movie?
Yeah, no, I feel like horror along with maybe comedy, certain genres don't lend themselves to longer run times. And yeah, I think horror definitely like because you want to feel that suspense, that thrill, but at some point you tend to notice like, oh, we've been here for a while. I actually don't think Nightbreed actually does it that bad. I really don't think. I'm more referring to like maybe some other movies that are like 2.5 hours. Only some great ones can do it, like The Shining. That's a great long horror movie.
Yeah, well, that one I think kind of that's kind of like the point of it. But
Oh, to be
anyway,
long and
that's
boring and shit.
yeah, pretty much.
That's
Um,
my interpretation.
but you know what? Fantastic Christmas movie.
I'll give you that one. I'll actually give you that one.
But anyway, the movie kind of starts out by this guy named Boone.
Mhm.
He's been having like these recurring nightmares of like this place that's been filled with like these demonic like creatures, and he's been going to therapy. And his therapist is a Dr. Philip Decker, played by David Cronenberg,
In a big
which is kind of
role,
funny.
you could
Yeah,
call him a star of this movie.
he is the main antagonist of this movie.
What is that? Like I've only seen him he's in stuff, but he's usually minor characters. But no, this what did you think he really do you think this was like a fun thing or do you really think he was trying to break into acting in some way?
I I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's shame on me for not really researching it that well, but my guess is just kind of like Clive Barker probably really admired David
Mhm.
Cronenberg, like his work, because David Cronenberg was already like an
Oh yeah.
accomplished like sci-fi horror director at this point. So I think it was kind of like, yeah, like he's ready to just see like, oh yeah, let me just put him in this movie. This guy's probably creepy enough or whatever. They probably had like a pre-existing relationship. Like, I can't imagine
Mhm.
like, oh, David Cronenberg is very interested in like him like reaching out to Clive
Uh-huh.
Barker to let him know like, hey, he's really interested in this part.
I
He's
mean,
ready to he's ready to come on audition.
he could have been a fan in some way, and that's why maybe he went to being in a larger role. Because I know Clive Barker or I feel like his stars started to fizzle, but at this point he was a big name or an up and coming name because Stephen King loved Clive Barker. He's probably a big fan of like or big in horror communities and stuff like that. So maybe there was a bit of admiration there too. Especially because Clive Barker's breaking into directing people. It's going to be a big deal. And then you get this, which is Nightbreed is such an odd movie. It feels like a nerd movie. And I know that sounds weird, but it felt like reading a comic book, like one of those indie comics where like it's got all these weird creatures with like weird body horror effects. It reminded me a little bit of Buffy in a way. And none of this is a not a isn't a put down at all. I just think it's a very interesting movie. I've never quite seen anything like it.
Oh yeah, and I would, like there are demonic elements to this movie, but it's not really like a horror movie, I would say, too much.
No, I mean, yeah, you could. I mean, if someone said this is a horror movie, I'd be like, yeah, it's horror, but it's very light on it.
It,
It's not
it's
scary.
it's not scary. I mean, like the scariest parts of it are maybe like the intense scenes with the doctor, because David Cronenberg's character, he does play like a serial killer in this movie, but that's not how it starts out, because we're kind of led to believe that Boone is kind of going crazy, and that
Mhm.
because he's seeing all these visions of like how these murders are being played. He's like, oh, I'm having these visions of like people dying, and he's like describing the murders to his therapist. And David Cronenberg's like, oh my, hey, all those exact details you just gave me, that's how these people have been dying. He's like
Um,
been like basically trying to like gaslight him into thinking that he's the one that performed these murders, where the plot twist is that it was David Cronenberg that was doing the murdering
yeah,
this whole time.
but that's not a late game plot twist. That plot twist happens
No,
pretty early because Because it's revealed it's like, oh, you weren't doing any of that, dumbass. It was him the whole time. He was taking it from you. And he's basically using them. And that antagonist character at one point was like, oh, take this lithium to calm me down. And then he gave him LSD. And so he was having more visions because of that.
Yeah,
And, what did you think of Cronenberg in this movie?
I liked him in this
I
movie.
did too. I thought he was
I
fun.
thought he, I thought, he plays a really creepy guy very well.
Hmm.
Um, I thought that mask that he had was like super cool looking. It's very
Hmm.
creepy. She was basically like this burlap sack with like buttons sewn on for eyes.
Yeah, yeah, I
And
agree. I actually really liked the mask.
it was very, it reminded me of that movie of The Collector, which they have kind of like
Hmm.
similar masks almost.
Yeah, they know they look very similar, or even the town that dreaded sundown, which is a real life like thing that kind of has a similar vibe.
Yeah. So it he definitely looked the part. He was definitely creepy enough for it. So I think he's probably one of the better parts of this movie.
Yeah, I think that's because like it's easy to say that because I think one of the worst parts of this movie is maybe the actor who plays Boone. I don't think he's terrible, but he just isn't very charismatic.
I agree. Like he's not terrible, but he just doesn't have the acting ability to basically be like a lead
Hmm.
of this whole movie.
Yeah, and he's asked to do a lot because he has to play crazy and then he becomes a Nightbreed and he kind of has to become a badass savior and then finally a god. He has to move up a lot. There's a lot of range to this. And it seems like they just kind of almost cheaped out on picking an actor. I feel like something better could have happened.
Absolutely, I agree.
Mhm.
I I did enjoy like a lot of the prosthetics of the characters because when he does show up finally, because he's basically just able to describe like what this one location looked like, which is Midian or yeah, Midian,
Midian,
right?
Midian. Yep.
Yeah, Midian. And because he's able to describe this location to like another like mental patient, and this mental patient's like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I
Yeah.
and the guy tears his face off afterwards. So
Yeah, but like it's like almost like a town, right? Midian's a town, but there's a group of Nightbreed that are pretty much people that have passed on, but can also live forever. But they take on these like they're not mutants, but these deformed like looks, and they have different powers. So this movie becomes a showcase of a bunch of weird creatures, these Nightbreed creatures, and they go crazy. I was so surprised just how much they threw at the wall in ideas of like different characters with different freaky looks.
oh yeah, like there was one that was somebody, like somebody had like a really messed up face, and someone like had like the really pronounced like forehead and chin.
Hmm.
And then there's like this other guy just carried around a dog.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he's like mute. Well, he talks a little, but he's pretty much quiet and he's got the dog and it's running around. Um there's like a few like just like that pass by. Like I think Boone goes way down. No, it's Boone's girlfriend, which is a whole nother plot, who goes down in like the dark depths and is told like, hey, don't go down there. And then there's like these really freaky creatures that they it seems like they're Nightbreed that have gone crazy. That doesn't come back up again. It's just like a little bit of lore building that they throw in here. One thing, this movie is definitely a setup for a series that never happened. It tries to set up so much.
It kind of does feel like that, doesn't it? Because they're trying to
Yeah.
set up this whole universe, but obviously this movie did not take off. It was critically panned and not a very, like I said, not a commercial success
Yeah,
overall.
I get it because it is definitely like a weird movie. Like if it has the feeling and plotting of a mainstream movie, but it has a lot of weird ideas. Once you get into the Nightbreed stuff, they get into like their lore, their gods, and what they believe in, and it's a lot of lore dumping for a little bit. And I don't think a lot of people are going to take to that. Personally, I don't know. I enjoyed it. I actually really liked Nightbreed. I don't think it's an amazing movie, but I think all of that stuff with the creatures and the lore, I actually admire this movie for going all out and trying all this stuff.
Yeah, I think overall I liked it. I wasn't wowed by it by any means, but it was definitely ambitious enough where I appreciated a lot of the elements of the movie where
Hmm.
I could really see like the time and attention and care they put into making this movie look really good. Because I mean, the
Hmm.
prosthetics of this movie do
It's
look really
crazy.
good,
Yeah.
and it does look very impressive. I kind of felt like the characters in this movie were a little weak, like
I
we
can
had
agree with
said.
that.
I did really enjoy David Cronenberg as a serial killer, and like he's super creepy. Um, and I did enjoy a lot of the action sequences towards the end of the movie as well, where it's
Hmm.
kind of like this big, huge war between like this these humans and these night breeds that are like going head to head at that point.
Hmm.
Um, so I was, but like I said, I mean, overall, I was it it was just missing that like next level element for me to like take it up to that next tier.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think it's the human characters that take that back because at the core of all this, it's a romance between Boone and his girlfriend, and how
Lori,
Lori, thank you, and how she is undevoted love to him because he takes on a demonic form because he like sucks up souls for power and he becomes really ugly is the best word to put it. His face gets deformed, and but Lori still loves him no matter what he does, no matter if he kills or is a cannibal, anything like that. And I feel like that dynamic was a little boring. I feel like Lori was just kind of a boring character.
just kind of felt like she was like a side piece, kind of where
Yeah.
it was just like she's just there for the emotional weight at the very end of the movie, which we'll get into in just a minute. But it was just kind of like it kind of just felt like she's just tossed in there. So it's like, well, he's got to have a love interest, that's just
Hmm.
makes it that much more tragic
Yeah.
because how the movie goes is that after he gets to Midian, the cops kind of follow him there, and he's being framed for all these murders because David Cronenberg killed all these people, which those are really good too. Like when he murders that family, like in their home.
Oh yeah, that's a great sequence where like he slices the lady's throat. And it's really that's a good like short tragedy because they seem like they really loved each other. They were like hugging each other and just really happy, the husband and wife, and then they're out. Or the one where he's like torturing the guy, right? The guy who really wants to be a Nightbreed and he like stabs him in the stomach. That's good too. I feel like that's and the horror and weirdness is when it shines, not like the stuff where they're in the cop station and stuff like that.
Yeah, the human elements of it are probably the weakest part for me.
Yeah.
And when we do get a lot of the Nightbreed stuff, that's when it becomes a lot more interesting. Um, but eventually he does get gunned down by the police officers, and that's where he turns into the Nightbreed because the only way you can become a Nightbreed is if you get killed, and then they kind of like deem you worthy of being a Nightbreed.
Yeah. Um, I love that scene too because they go up to Boone, the cops are there, and Cronenberg's like, "No, let me talk to him. Let me talk to him." And while he's talking, he's like, I totally understand where you're coming from. He's got a gun, and then he jumps out of the way, and they just blow him the smithereens. Like he's just he just is blown away by all the police.
Right, just how sadistic he is as a killer. Just he's just like able to just like flawlessly like do that.
Uh-huh, yeah. It's great. But yeah, the cops get a whole storyline because the sheriff of the town doesn't want to believe that these things exist. Um, and then there's like a whole group of there's like a detective here too, but he ends up getting killed. That whole element, I feel like that was when like the movie was on a downshift. Give me more of the weird stuff. That's what I like.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of really good stuff in there, like we said, like the lore of like the Nightbreed. Um,
Mhm.
and the movie kind of does the 180 turn where you're thinking the Nightbreed people are going to be like the villains or like the monsters of the movie, but no, It was humans all along. They're the real bad guys of this
Oh
movie.
my God. Can you believe it that the Nightbreed were the ones who were persecuted? The weird ones? Oh, come on. And they just don't want the weird ones around.
No. Yeah, and that's basically how the movie goes, is that it turned out like this whole time the Nightbreed were trying to just live in peace in the cemetery in Midian. Like they didn't want to be bothered by anything, but the humans, they were the ones trying to extinguish them as a race.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the movie takes a turn where Boone, instead of like trying to defeat the Nightbreed, you know, joins their side of the battle. So because there's a very big sequence at the end where a lot of the cops and stuff come to Midian, and it just turns into like this all-out war, um, where they're fighting each other, like the Nightbreeds and the cops and stuff, and like the townsfolk are fighting. And
Hmm.
there's some pretty brutal kills in that one too. That whole sequence.
Yeah, yeah, that whole sequence is really solid. There's some good stuff all around towards the end. And I like the dynamic where like there's a god underneath everything, and it's almost like Boone becomes a Jesus-like figure. It's like he becomes Cabal, which is like the savior to the Nightbreed.
So because of this, though, like the whole town where Midian is like that they have to kind of find their own home.
Hmm.
So they're like, oh well, we got to go find our new home and be transferred. And they're supposed to make this really like emotional goodbye scene between Boone and Laurie,
Hmm.
where he's just like, I'm a Nightbreed now. This is just what I do. Like you're gonna have to just go back to town and just deal with it, type of thing. Like she's like, oh, I can't give up. I can't live without you. And then she just stabs herself. She kills herself like right in front of him.
Yeah,
So that
so
way
he'll
she can be
say.
turned into, so that way she can turn him, or he can turn her into a Nightbreed.
I was thinking about how like funny the idea of all this is because what if like Boone didn't actually like her that much and was like, "Oh, I don't want to spend the
Uh,
rest of my life with you," and then she
the,
kills herself, forcing the relationship.
or he just like leaves her there, just being like, just doesn't turn her into a Nightbreed. Just like,
It's like, oh, she killed
it's like,
herself.
ooh, dodge that bullet, and just
Yeah, right.
walks off.
Yeah, otherwise this girl will be chasing her forever. Yeah, if there was one thing I could pinpoint, like I really didn't like, that ending is really dramatic. It's so
That's it.
lame.
It's a little silly,
Hmm.
and I think that would have worked a lot better had they kind of just parted their separate ways there.
Maybe the stronger,
And
like more thoughtful way to do it.
I mean, yeah, I think I mean I think that would have been better if they had just gone with the ending of she kind of just gives him up, and he could just goes off and becomes a Nightbreed somewhere.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I mean that's pretty much it right there. Except at Decker, the David Cronenberg's character does die at some point, but then at the end of the movie, surprise, he's back, he's alive.
Yeah, of
And
course.
of course, we'll see him in part two. Oh, wait a minute.
There was never a part two? You gotta be kidding me. Yeah, this movie, it's so hopeful that it's gonna get another one. It really is.
Mhm. Yeah, I think Clive Barker was kind of thinking like, oh, I knocked it out of the park with Hellraiser. This one's got to work too. So,
Yeah.
um, I don't know. I mean, like, if I would necessarily like want more sequels to this movie either. Like, I
Yeah.
thought it was fine, but like, I wasn't really like, oh my God, like what happens next type of thing.
No.
I wasn't really I wasn't really like wanting more from a sequel. So overall, I mean, like I said, I thought it was a good movie. There's enough in there where I appreciated the effort put into it, but is it a great movie? I don't think so. If I were, I mean, I would probably just give it a light recommend in my book.
Mhm.
It's interesting enough to where I can appreciate it, but it's not one where I would just like, oh my God, yeah, drop what you're doing, go watch this on Halloween.
No, yeah. I mean, I actually quite like this movie. I think it's fun, inventive, doing some ambitious stuff. I think maybe setting up for a sequel kind of like it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, especially because nothing ever happened. But I'd recommend it. I give it a light recommend. I think this movie deserves a little bit
Yeah,
of love. Just don't expect anything amazing. Don't expect Hellraiser, which I think is a much better movie. But I think this is some solid stuff here.
absolutely. But I think that's going to do it for this movie for Nightbreed. So, Nathan, what are we going to be talking about next time?
All right. All right. Well, Ryan, we are going to be talking about 2008's Lake Mungo, and that one is streaming on the Criterion Channel, Tubi, and Plex.
Well, Nathan, we're going to be talking about the movie Cemetery Man, and that is on Tubi right now.
Oh wow, it's been a long time, so I'm excited to watch that one.
If you have any thoughts and opinions about this podcast, please feel free to email us over at driveanddoubleFeaturePodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to check out our Patreon at patreon.com/driveanddoubleFeaturePodcast and check out the YouTube channel at youtube.com/driveanddoubleFeaturePodcast. But until next time, everybody.
Until next time.